What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Marko of The Crown. Great to talk to you today, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey, man. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you here. We got the brand new album, Royal Destroyer, coming out this March. Is this just, would you consider this just a continuation of what we heard on Cobra's Speed Venom, or do you think that this is almost kind of like a new entity in the catalog for The Crown?
For us, it feels maybe like a sequel, actually, to Cobra Speed Venom, because there was a lot of things we sort of realized when we did that album, and also how we recorded everything, how we rehearsed that. We sort of we found a pretty good sort of formula, a way back to form, so to say. We took a few steps back in the more old school way, how we used to do albums when we did Cobra Speed Venom. So we sort of continued with that sort of approach, because that album was it turned out really good and the feedback was amazing, so we were very inspired to sort of continue in that style. So being a sequel, what do you do with a sequel? You need to turn everything on 11 and go for that extra gear. So that's what we tried to do with Royal Destroyer,
which is really cool. I like that term, the sequel. So do you feel that maybe if people are just discovering The Crown now, or just discovering you later into their metal career, they should start off with Cobra Speed Venom and then listen to Royal Destroyer? Do you think that that's almost kind of like a good starting point in a way?
Yeah, it could be, because I know a lot of people said that Cobra Speed Venom was so, I mean, we were back to form, and some people even also said that it's sort of like a comeback album in many ways, because there were two albums before that that were very different. I mean, I think for Cobra Speed Venom, we have this lineup now that we still have, and that worked out so fucking great, and that's what we continued with on Royal Destroyer as well. So yeah, that would be a good start, a warm up Cobra and then go for the destruction.
Yeah, well, I think it's cool though that like an album such as Doomsday King or Death Is Not Dead, that you did kind of like experiment a little bit, because I think it's always good to maybe like keep your listeners on their toes in a bit, right?
Yeah, and it's also just very sort of different type of albums for so many reasons. I mean, we had a different singer on Doomsday King, and actually Doomsday King was the actual real comeback after we sort of broke up. So it wasn't even intended to be a Crown album as a first. So but during the whole process, we sort of tweaked it into a Crown album, so it became a bit different type. And Death Is Not Dead was very special in many ways, because we were a bit lost. Our drummer we started working for Apple in the US, and he moved, and we took the radical decision that I would play the drums on that album as well. So I played drums, guitars, and I produced it. It became a kind of a mess, a bit too much to handle. So that's what we decided when we then did Cobra Speed Venom. I said that I'm not going to produce. I'm just going to be a annoying guitarist, just sitting on the couch complaining. And that was my goal. And I like it, because we have a very good producer in Fredrik Nordström. Is a great guy.
Leaving a death metal band to sell your soul to work for Apple, the corporate entity of artificial intelligence. It does not. That is so metal. People want to say you're selling out to the corporate world. He sold his death metal soul to the world of artificial intelligence. That guy ain't no poser.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah, that's like that's brilliant. I mean, when you mentioned that I've been headhunted by Apple, it's like we were like, yeah, go. I mean, that's such an opportunity, and being from Sweden and all that, and I mean, Apple. Janne, our drummer, they sold everything basically at home, and the whole family moved to San Francisco for 3 years. So yeah, excellent. He's a pretty smart guy, and he's actually the guy that sort of developed the microphone for the iPhone 6. And I mean, so he's a pretty bright guy. So
send him my thank you, because that thing was awesome. And but have him come back for at least one more album. I think artificial intelligence would be a great subject matter to work off of.
Yeah, have you seen that online when there's this like AI thing that is composing a death metal song? That's actually fucking crazy.
You give Fear Factory a run for its money.
Yeah, Fear Factory 3.0.
Exactly. Moving back to Royal Destroyer, though, do you feel that maybe the first single, Motor Death, could almost serve as like a good representation of what the entirety of Royal Destroyer will sound like, or is that just one little taste?
I think it's one little taste because what we are very pleased with this album. It's a very varied album. I mean, More to Death is the thrash song on the album, you know, and we open the album with a chaotic grindcore song almost, and then there is the slow song. I mean, there's a lot of feels and approaches to songs on it, and I think that people that has followed us, they know that we usually have pretty varied albums. There seems to be the heavy song, the long song, the over the top song, and so I think that with More to Death they will be reacquainted a bit with the sort of thrashier side to us, but there are a lot of flavors on the album actually, and we even included a song that is pretty much as close as a ballad that we will do, and so we're going all over the places. So it's nice to surprise, you know, ourselves and the listeners as well. So.
A Ballad on a Crown album. This,
Yeah.
now I'm really interested.
Yeah, because that's also when we sort of did it and we agreed, yeah, let's fucking do it. It's gonna be great. People gonna it's gonna be a shitstorm, and so we also took the next step that it's gonna actually be our next single. So let's see what the death metal police will say, you know, when we release it. But it's not a sort of a clean singing ballad. It's a different kind of thing. You will hear. It's pretty different.
After seeing Goat Whore play at a wedding, I'm expecting anything at this point. So, and I'm not even lying. So, but like, you know what's interesting though is because I feel like when somebody labels, like I've talked about the Crown numerous times on this website and amongst my metal peers and everything like that, and like people say like, oh, the Crown is really brutal heavy metal, but like I feel like brutal is such a vague term. Oh, are they brutal like death metal? Are they brutal like thrash metal? Are they brutal like black metal, tech death? So, but I feel like, you know, when you compare like, you know, Hell is Here to Crowned in Terror to Possessed 13 to even Royal Destroyer, it almost seems like you guys are able to bring like a smorgasbord of brutality into your sound, would you say?
I would agree, and that's something we're sort of pretty proud with, that we get away with it, you know. I think from commercial point of view, maybe it would be much easier if we would be a more, you know, a band that you can actually label being, oh, this is a brutal death metal band, you know. But there are, as you said, there's a lot of flavors there, and that sort of started with the whole Hell is Here album, because that's when we sort of dared to incorporate a lot of rock and roll stuff and you know, punkish, you know, feel, and about sort of cliche lyrics almost here and there, some titles, you know. So it was almost like a restart. That was also the first album that was picked up by Metal Blade, so it was a good start. And then we just continue with it. Next one was Death Race King, and we sort of perfected what we started with. And for me, that's one of my favorite albums, Death Race King. We sort of managed to get a really, really good balance of the rock and roll and death metal, and there's also some heavy stuff there. And I think I get that asked pretty much, you know, how would you label? I mean, it's I say that our sort of core will always be death metal, but we tend to be a bit all over the place as well. But we never take that radical step that now we're gonna do like clean vocal choruses, and you know that we're gonna stay within our bubble and do our thing. But we are very inspired by the sort of mentality from like old Metallica, where we actually dare to do some, go out of your safety zone and try out stuff, you know. So
well, does it ever start off with songwriting with a preconceived idea, like let's do something more thrashy, let's do something more raw, let's do something more technical, or is there like a lot of improvising and experimentation involved?
we usually write the songs pretty individually, at least the sort of meat and potato of the song, the core essence. I mean, when I do a song, well, first of all, we never have a sort of plan when we start on a new album. Like, yeah, now we're gonna make a thrash metal album or something. We basically start with the same approach always. That after the touring cycle ends, we have a break, and then you get that call, you know, from like Magnus. Do you have some songs? Yeah, actually, I have 3 songs. Yeah, me too. Then we start to rehearse, and then we go around the table, you know, take a song at a time, and that's usually at first, you know, when you're song number 2 or 3, it's like, what is this? You don't see the big picture, but when you're when you're rehearsing song number 8 or something like that, you start to see, this is where we're going. So it's basically just trying to, capture the moment and do the songs you want to do for the moment. And let's see how we can sort of create an album out of this. And that's when the fun part starts in the end. If you have we recorded 12 songs, but in the end we only wanted 10 songs for the album. And that's when you have a chance to sort of create something that works together. So that's usually how we work.
You ever worried that the song you leave out of the album is going to be a B-side and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Constantly. That's such a typical freaking argument that happens all the time. It's I know that for the Cobra Speed Venom, it was we couldn't decide what to use as a bonus track, so we actually sent, I think we had 13 songs on it, and we sent it to Metal Blade, a good guy there, Andreas, and we just told him, you pick out 3 songs. We're not going to even argue with you, because we knew that we could never decide. So actually he removed a song called The Great Dying, and I had high hopes for it because it was such a heavy song. But what sort of made me calm in the end was that I knew that even though it was a bonus track, it would end up at least on the streaming medias, and people that give a shit, they can at least hear it, And actually that song got a lot of good feedback. So at least as long as the songs are available. So, but yeah, there can be some ugly fights about.
Fair enough. I've always said that Rockstar Purgatory is the realm of forgotten riffs and the realm of forgotten ideas, like songs that never see the light of day. That's where all metalheads are going to go when they perish.
That's it.
Now, you mentioned before with the songwriting, sort of like capturing a moment, which I always love it when artists say that. But do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on a song, the harder it is to kind of like maintain that moment in a way? Because you have some songs on the new album, like you have a song like Beyond the Frail that's 5.5 minutes long, or a song like Ultra Faust that's 6.5 minutes. So do you find it maybe the longer you work on something, the harder it is to kind of capture a moment?
Yeah, that is a good point. And that is something we discuss also, because Magnus is a sort of typical example of that. When we sort of, let's say we rehearse Ultra Faust and we're playing it, and then starts to sound good, and we come back next week and he has like 15 ideas how to change it. And then let's try the changes. And then somewhere the 5 of us need to decide, is the change better or is it worse? I mean, and so you need to at some point sort of say, this is fair, this is fucking good song. Because, I mean, there's a really good point from an interview with Lars Ulrich when we were working on a Metallica album, and he said that when the fuck is a song done?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a good question. I mean, when is it done? Who decides when it's done? So that is something that you need to have an open dialogue within the band all the time. That is, okay, this is good enough, so let's not gonna mess with it too much, because, I mean, I tend to try to go back to the first feeling. If I create something or we rehearse something and you get that feeling that, God damn, this sounds good. And after 3 weeks, when you start doubt yourself, is this good enough? You need to go back to that. How did I actually feel the first time I heard it? Because now I've heard it 50 times and obviously it doesn't do the same, kick for me the 50th time. So you need to build a bit of confidence and believe in yourself, and that can be really, really difficult many times.
Do you find it maybe easier to kind of come up with new ideas when you're in the company of your other bandmates, or do you kind of need to be alone in isolation where there's nothing in between you and your instrument?
For me to do the sort of song, the sort of core song, that I need to do that by myself and just mess around and try to come to that level when I get this good feeling. But then again, all of us really like the process of rehearsing, and that's when I mean, if we play one of Robin's song, there's never like a silly rule in the band that what I says goes, or you can't comment on my stuff. I mean, it's a very, very open dialogue all the time, and usually I sort of add a lot of stuff to Magnus' stuff, maybe some melodies here and there, and Magnus is very good with arrangements. He's much about that, you need to get to the point right away, and there's no reason playing that riff 6 times. 2 times is enough, So there's a lot of teamwork in the end, but I really prefer to be alone when I mess with melodies and structures and the sort of first step in making a song.
Do you have a theoretical element that you apply to your songwriting structure, or are you more on the self-taught side?
I'm very, very self-taught, and that's pretty good sometimes also, because I honestly don't know how to find notes on a guitar. That's on the level I am. I go by ear, and sometimes someone like Robin, that is, he actually knows his shit. He can sort of react sometimes. Whoa, what was that scale? You can't do like that, And then we have a discussion about it. But usually I just go by ear, and I think that doing this for 30 years, in somewhat sense, I'm a bit confident that I know that when I get to that level that I believe in a song, it is pretty good. But then I also know myself that, okay, just give it 3-4 weeks and you're going to doubt yourself and you're going to hate yourself and you don't want to ever write a song again. But I know it's a phase. I always go through that sort of emotions for every song. And but you live and learn.
Yeah. Well, I heard in an interview with the guitarist Peter Witchers saying that he actually taught himself by learning how to whistle. That's how he came up with certain solos. So I feel like even if you don't have the theoretical background, there's always some outside methodology you could apply to your instrument to make it work,
Absolutely. And I can even sometimes mess with a keyboard, If I play a rhythm thing on a guitar and put it on loop and just start to find some cool, melodies, because you tend to play, you tend to choose your melodies differently on like a keyboard instead of guitars, because there's some certain patterns that you have in your spine, basically, that you sort of follow. So that's a way to sort of try to find out some different approaches. So and I also play the drums, so I can sometimes come up with a drum beat that is the sort of first step to a riff. And so, yeah, whatever happens, But I really like the approach to sort of try to take the sort of brain out of the element, and not overanalyze. I mean, you need to somewhere decide, is this good or is it bad? And then it becomes more about a feeling and a sort of like Lars Ulrich used to say, again, like it's all about instinct, some you need to react and act. So
well, yeah, you mentioned like that feeling and stuff like that, which I always find unique, because we've seen it a million times with guitar players, that whether they're inspired or they're not, they're sitting on the couch or sitting in a room with the guitar noodling around. Do ideas come by accident, or are you really do ideas or like come out of nowhere when you least expect it, or do you kind of like feel an emotion and then that's when you start songwriting? Do you almost kind of need to feel a certain way to get into a songwriting mode? I guess the best way is to ask.
I will say definitely like 99% of the times it just happens. It's like you said, sitting on the couch, watching a silly Netflix movie in your underwear, just messing with the acoustic guitar or something, and you just hear some notes that, wow, what was that? And then I disappear to my studio and record something and start mess with it. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. And but yeah, that happens. And sometimes things happen just out of pure luck. I record something and then I play it back, but I played back from the wrong part or something, and I hear it completely differently, and that triggers an idea. So it's very much like that. I know some people, they can basically put an alarm clock on and go up 8 a.m. and start composing for 6 hours. That I can never do. It just happens.
Yeah.
So
I'd imagine it strikes at very inconvenient times as well, right?
As always.
Yeah. Like every artist I've said, they said that the inspiration always comes in the shower. So I'm like trying to tell pro audio companies and like guitar companies, like, you need to start making waterproof gear. Like, you need to start making showers/studios. The water bills are going to go up astronomically, but think about how many great albums will come just from the shower,
Yeah, that's true. A lot of magic happens while driving. That's what I noticed. So I have a lot of recorded voicemails in my telephone saying, stuff like that. So,
well,
you try to capture it when you come up with it. But at the same time, I like the fact that if you don't remember it after a day, maybe it wasn't a good idea. So
Fair enough. That's a good way of having a peace of mind. Is please don't take your eyes off the road. I was terrified. Everybody was so excited when Bruce Dickinson was flying that jet. I was terrified. What if he was thinking of riff ideas as he was taking off or landing the plane? You know?
Yeah, constantly on autopilot, even landing and stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna circle the tarmac while I lay down these riffs. And is it sometimes maybe a little bit easier to come up with, because I'd imagine everybody in the band is extraordinarily talented, so like do you maybe find it easier if maybe Heinrich or Robin presented you some ideas, or maybe Johan maybe came up with like a concept to inspire you, or are you always kind of like the one who has to lay down the groundwork for everything?
No. I'm not the only composer in the band. It's me and Magnus are the main writers. We usually write like 50-50, and Robin writes 1 or 2 songs for like every album as well. So it becomes a joint effort. But even Johan wrote like a verse riff, the opening stuff, the Baptized in Violence. That was Johan's idea. That was actually an idea that started. He said on a rehearsal, it would be cool to have like a 1-minute song. That was how it started. And then he went home, he wrote a riff, and Magnus wrote another riff to it, and it was done like in a week. But it became so furious and cool, so it worked. So, but I believe in team effort. I believe in working as a band, especially when you sort of find the fucking perfect members. I mean, that's a team effort, and everybody needs to be involved. And we're not afraid to tell each other that, well, that wasn't a good idea. Should we try something like this? And we try to be open to it,
Yeah.
So, like me, I'm a guitarist, but I love being in the studio when Johan lays down the vocals, because that's I love having ideas for vocals, like, yeah, there you should do a scream, and can you just change that word because that sounds so much better, and stuff like that. So yeah, and sometimes Henrik, being the drummer, can say, maybe you should play the riff like that, because then I can follow on the kick drums, small ideas all the time. So
yeah, it seems like with the Crown, you have the best of both worlds, where all ideas are welcome, and in the end, I think you all work together to make those ideas work out great. And I think that's why, every album in your catalog, even back in the days when your guys were called Crown of Thorns, even like really, really stands out. So excellent work. I think that Royal Destroyer is a real testament to your team effort.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for the Crown? Maybe like a live stream performance to help support the release of this, or anything else that you would like to plug?
Yeah, the live stream thing is a bit inevitable nowadays. It's so frustrating that we can't plan anything. We don't have a single show booked at all. So I mean, all the bands are obviously in the same situation, and but what we have decided is that we are gonna do something in February. Then we haven't decided exactly if we're gonna do like a 3-hour show, or if we're gonna do special songs from all the albums or whatever. But we are gonna do something in February, and hopefully do like a stream thing, or maybe several. Let's see what good ideas come up.
Play all those songs.
Obviously,
that
we
you
need
never
to do
released.
something,
Yeah, play all those songs that you never released that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that is cool. I mean, the streaming thing goes together hand in hand with another thing, with the social medias. There's a way to interact and stuff like that. So it is cool, but we're just going to try to find a way. We're going to make it a bit interesting. I've seen a couple of those live stream shows, and some are good and some are actually terrible. I mean, it's all about if you have a cool idea and maybe some budget or whatever, but yeah, you don't necessarily need to be on a stage and try to mimic a live show. Maybe you can do it somewhere else,
Yeah.
Out in the snow, that would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, they're trying to keep the DIY hardcore thing alive. So, instead of, having fancy production, they bring, one of those old school, like, camera flip phones and try to connect it to a live stream to make it all old school, DIY hardcore and,
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And that is cool sometimes as well. But I think that the more creative bands get, the more fun it will get, because the streaming thing will live on for at least a couple of years, So, and it will also help a lot of bands that can't go around the world playing live, So that's a good thing. So I think it's a good complement to the scene. And I also think that when the live thing comes back, I'm sure it would still live on, and hopefully it has found a sort of more interesting way to present the sort of stream stuff.
Definitely. Well, thank you so
Let's
much.
see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marko. This was really a great time. Everybody, we are here with Marko of The Crown. Be sure to check out Royal Destroyer coming out this March via Metal Blade Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.